Welcome back to another episode of AWS She Builds. And you're reading the description right. We're talking about AIM, or the acronym of AIM today. But before we get into the topics and introduce our guests, I couldn't start this without saying Happy International Women's Day for all those that got to celebrate yesterday. And if you didn't get to shout out one of your mentors or a woman in your life that's made an impact, don't forget to do it today. So with that, we are here today with Anna and Mary from AWS, and we are going to quickly do intros. So Anna, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Anna Echeverri, and I lead our AI Maturity Accelerator program at AWS. So basically work with customers around the world that are looking for ways to improve the way that they're adopting AI, make it more predictable, more structured, more systematic.
Awesome. And Mary, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Snell. I've been a senior customer solutions manager at AWS for about 3.5 years now, almost. As a CSM, one of the many things that I get to do in the field with AWS customers is to help them think through how to build AI capabilities that actually stick. So not just technically, but also organizationally. And I work out of Nashville, Tennessee. So if you're in the area, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to go grab lunch and talk all things AI.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us. Anna, I'm going to start with you. Before we dive in, can you explain a little bit to the audience and level set us on what AI maturity really means and how should organizations think about the concept?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to define AI maturity. And in some cases, there's maturity frameworks that are looking, let's say, just at the technical adoption, like how do I leverage more features from existing technologies? The way we look at AI maturity is because we're working with our customers and they're aiming to adopt the technology, but also to scale throughout the organization and to maintain these projects in alignment with business value. So what we have is a definition that looks at specific capabilities that are required for success. Some of them are technical and are about the implementations and the operations and security. Others are focused in what we call organizational capability. So deals with people, deals with culture, innovation. So in a nutshell, you can summarize it as the collection of technical and organizational capabilities that are required for a successful adoption of AI and to maintain that alignment with business value.
So I want to dive a little deeper. What drove the idea and subsequently launched AIM? And what gaps were you seeing in the market with our customers for the program to help address?
So I've been working with customers adopting artificial intelligence technologies for the past 15 years. With AWS, I've been here 3.5 years. So for many years, I've been seeing the same patterns. Like even before we had generative AI and sort of it opened up this Pandora's box of capabilities for the masses. Customers were adopting machine learning and dealing with the challenges of, for the first time, working with technologies that are non-deterministic. And what that means is that prior to artificial intelligence technologies, let's say if we look at other paradigms or other waves of adoption, let's say internet or mobile or cloud or ERPs, all of that is deterministic. So I ask for something, it gives me an answer. That answer, it's precise. When we're working with AI, everything is non-deterministic, which means even though, when we look at an output today and it looks like the quality is so absolutely fantastic that, some people think there's even like a person behind that chat having a real conversation. The reality is that under the covers, what we have, it's mathematical models that are giving us answers with a certain degree of certainty. So that brings a lot of new ways to do the same thing that they've been doing for many years. So I started working with customers where they were saying, we don't know what we don't know. And especially over the past 2 years, where things are moving so fast. It's like you're about to get a grasp on how to do one thing, and here comes another advancement. So I think even though we've been seeing this need for a long time, it has compounded and accelerated over the 2 years of customers saying we have it's very difficult to predict the success of a project. So we have some that work, some that don't work, and we don't know why, because the book on AI adoption has not been written, and it may not be written for a while because everything is moving in a very significant speed. So that's the reason for building the AI Maturity Accelerator. From all these conversations where customers say, there's got to be a better way. So we're coming in and saying, yes, there's a better way that involves having clarity on the pieces or the fundamentals that you need to work on to succeed, and then work in a systematic way and proactive way to build those capabilities so that you're not just looking at individual use cases on case-by-case basis and looking at them and saying, this one worked, this one didn't, why?
Yeah, Anna, where were you 2 years ago when I was struggling with my customers, when we were kind of going through, it was like, do we jump off the cliff and do it, or do we wait?
Yeah.
And have all the recommendations, it just became like a little bit of a tornado, and analysis paralysis happened.
So I think we see a lot of paralysis analysis, or a lot of let's just jump in.
Yep.
Let's pick 10 use cases and let's just go at them with no criteria. Right? Like how do we select the right use cases? And I often tell customers, the moment that you decide on which cases you're going to start implementing for something that's completely new for you, at that moment, depending on how you selected those use cases, the probability of success is already set. So if all you did was write a list and say, let's get started with this list, it's very random, right? But if you have a mechanism through which you're able to identify potential use cases or areas in the organization that can benefit from AI, and then you can look at how ready you are for those individual use cases. You can look at what is the business impact that those use cases are going to bring, and what is the risk profile. Like, if you're starting with something new, don't pick the use case that has the highest risk, right? Start with other areas where you can more easily minimize or control those risks. So we see this a lot where it's like they're either paralyzed or they're jumping in with no clarity on how to do that jump in a more efficient way.
All right, for those in the chat, are you a jump off the cliff or a wait and do all of the risk analysis? I would love to know, because I know where I am, and I will reveal that after we ask Anna this next question. So what kind of results have you seen from customers who have participated in AIM engagements? Can you share any specific outcomes?
Yeah, so there's multiple areas. So the way that we deliver this engagement is we meet with our customers' leadership, multiple stakeholders from different areas, from the technical areas, from the business side, from HR, governance, security, and we have an AI strategy conversation through which we're using a tool with an assessment, and we're capturing quantitative metrics for where they are for each of the capabilities that we have in our framework. So during those 4 hours, the goal is to capture those values, but also to have a conversation to understand what else they're dealing with. So all of that goes into our qualitative results. And so just from that session, before we even provide any guidance, they tell us that they come out of that session with a completely different understanding of things that they need to do. Very typical example is one of the key areas for success is looking at implementation cycles end to end, from where a use case is identified all the way to production and monitoring after production, and ensuring that at every important decision point, there is domain experts from the business side, as well as technical experts that are implementing the solution. So a lot of times during this workshop, what they see is like, oh, this person over there is doing this really well, and I'm not, and we're not even talking to each other. So even from just that session, they come out saying, okay, now we know what those capabilities are. Before we were just saying AI adoption and thinking mostly it's a technical implementation process. So when they come out, they have an understanding of what are all the different areas that they actually need to consider. Yes, some of them are more urgent, some of them are more sort of over time, longer term. From that session, they say, now we feel like we have a better grasp on the things that we need to do. But examples on what happens after. So once we come out of that room and we analyze those results, we're able to give them one strategic guidance in terms like the example that I used of use case prioritization, which is very common for organizations to come low in their maturity or their ability to do that well and at scale in the organization. So not only will tell them, well, this is important to do, but also we'll share with them what other resources at AWS we have to help them do that. So we have customers that tell us something simple like we came out of this engagement understanding that AI was not a technical endeavor. It was really an area where we needed the whole organization to participate together and to work together at different stages. We have customers that coming out of there realize that it's important to build a center of excellence, for example, because if you want to scale AI across the organization, it's key that you're capturing best practices, that you're ensuring that a new team doesn't have to reinvent the wheel from scratch. So some of them come out and say, okay, we're going to build a COE. If they want our help, then we can support them. Others come with clarity around training, so they may identify that they have multiple gaps on their skills areas, not just for technical teams, but also for the leadership and for the end users that are going to be using these applications. So it's typically because for every customer, the plan is specific and aligned with where they are in that adoption journey. So what happens next is going to be different for every customer. But it typically involves now having a baseline where they know, well, these capabilities are okay, these others are low, and out of the ones that are low, there are some that are definitely more urgent than others. So we're going to work on building those capabilities next.
Awesome. So chat, I haven't seen the answer yet. Are you a cliff jumper or are you more on the analysis paralysis? What one have you experienced? And while I'm waiting for answers, we are going to go through some of the comments. So Life Gigabyte says happy International Women's Day. We have somebody who learned a good term, analysis into paralysis. Then we have assessments save the team time by identifying inefficiencies, streaming collaboration, and preventing costly errors before jumping in and winging it. 100%.
And I'll just add a comment to that, to the assessment save the team time, because what we measure is per capability. So we assess 50 different topics. So we're not telling the customer, overall, your organization is at this level, because then it becomes very difficult to take action. We can be very granular and say, yes, these are the areas that should be your short-term priorities. Then, coming next. And it's a journey. So you're never done, really, because by the time, let's assume that your organization said, we're going to be a 5 for every capabilities in a scale of 1 to 5. By the time they get there, the technologies have changed, the customer demands have changed, the market reality has changed. So it's a continuous journey where in some areas you're moving forward and sometimes you're moving backwards because there's something new that is changing in your environment or in the technologies themselves, and you have to start building capabilities for that again.
Awesome. And we have somebody just saying hi and thanks for sharing info. So I'm gonna answer my own question to you ladies, and then I'm gonna ask you. So I'm a cliff jumper when it comes to learning new technologies, but I am a ridiculous planner, and I know our chat mod MJ knows this. On the back end, I like to plan everything out, go from the business value, and really dive deep that way. So what would you ladies say that you are? Are you a combo, or do you like to dive into one side or the other?
I'll say that I kind of lean more towards cliff jumping. Like I would say like 80-20, like 80% jumping right in and then 20%, hold on, let me pump the brakes and actually plan this out a little bit.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a mix because it really depends, right? Like there's areas where, and I think this happens to organizations too, right? There's areas where you know it's a strength. It's something you can do with your eyes closed. You can probably jump in. But I do think when you're doing something new, it's so critical to, let's talk AI adoption. What does that mean, right? And it doesn't mean what a lot of people think that is, let's implement something, let's get something out the door. It actually means a lot more in terms of what are those competencies or what are those things that we need to ensure that we do well to even start. For example, data. Data, it's a big blocker for AI projects because if you don't have data, you don't have AI basically. Even if you say, well, but a foundation model is already trained in the world's data. Yeah, but your competitive advantage is in your own data as an organization. So data is key for it to be ready on day one. So if you don't have the data, you can't do anything, right? But there's other things that you're going to have to be addressing as you move forward. So I think it's really key, and especially when you're working in a probabilistic environment that requires looking at risk differently, looking at the user experience differently. If my users are going to be seeing AI outputs that may be incorrect, I have to think about, first, disclosure that this is AI generated information. Second, what options am I giving them for them to let me know if something's not working out as expected? So there's always little things that I think if you don't plan and sort of define, here's what this roadmap looks like, it's very easy to forget about them. And then you have to go back and try to retrofit.
Awesome. Anna, I'm going to give you a break. I know we've had you in the hot seat for a little bit, and I'm going to put Mary in the hot seat now. And Mary, we're going to go from a field perspective or a customer's perspective. You engage with them day in and day out, as we've learned about your role. So when you're out in the field, what kind of signals have you seen that have gotten you excited about this program, and what are customers telling you about their AI challenges?
Yeah, so I think that my answer is going to tie directly back to what we were just discussing of like jumping right in versus pumping the brakes and planning. And something that I've discussed with many of my customers over the past couple of years is this idea of, we're doing AI, but we don't know if we're doing it right. So most organizations at this point have AI investments. They have AI projects, but they're not sure if they have fully implemented or implemented at all a truly organization-wide strategy for AI at scale. And by AI, I mean those technical and non-technical requirements like Anna was talking about earlier. So I've also seen customers who are quite mature, AI mature in some areas, but they have real gaps in others. Maybe they are strong on model development, but weak on governance or cross-functional alignment. Or you might have one team in your company who are absolute rock stars when it comes to all things AI, but other teams in the same organization who are just now starting on their AI journey. So a lot of folks struggle to scale learnings from one team to others. For example, developing frameworks and best practices to prevent costly rework later on down the road. And what got me really excited about AIM specifically is that this program helps to surface those gaps and align stakeholders across the customer organization in such a way that they're able to take action to address those gaps. So it's not just diagnostic, it's actionable coming out of this engagement.
Awesome. And that's what I think it is. It's the action part. I've got to say that always gets people going. So what kind of customers do you think would benefit from this? And what does the ideal candidate look like? So I guess we're going customer use case, and then who are we working with to get this kickstarted?
Yeah. So the honest answer is more customers than you think, right? AIM isn't just for organizations that are in those beginning stages of AI adoption. In fact, those customers may not be the ones that benefit most from AIM, right? The people who are just now starting. I kind of see the ideal candidate as being any organization that wants to adopt those AI best practices holistically at scale across their organization, whether they're kind of figuring out what that foundation looks like, or they're strengthening specific capabilities that they may already be aware of that needs work, or they may be unaware, right? So in practice, we're looking for customers where there's leadership buy-in to have that real strategic conversation, because AIM works best when the people setting that direction are in the room for this discussion. And that way we can have that real transparency, gain alignment across the customer's organization, and then figure out how to best address those gaps that are uncovered. It's also a really good fit for customers who might be feeling a little bit of pressure, maybe from their board or internally or from their customers, to move faster for all things AI, but they're not really sure where to start, or they're not sure how to build something that's truly sustainable, so that they're not just rolling out AI features or tools reactively.
Awesome. So, all right, we've been talking a lot about the program. Let's dive even deeper now. And Mary, as a certified AIM practitioner, what is your role specifically in these engagements? And then walk us through what you are doing during this when you're going through the 3 to 4 hour assessment workshop.
Yeah, so for that workshop itself, my role is purely to facilitate. I'm not there to tell customers what their AI strategy should be, and I'm not there to correct them in their discussions. I'm very much there to help our customers see clearly where they are and what's possible for them in the road ahead. I'm there to help drive discussions if things start getting stuck. And I'm also there to help all the customer stakeholders align on exactly where they are as a company across the different areas, those technical and non-technical AI areas of maturity. I'm also kind of listening for patterns. Like I'm doing a lot of note taking. I'm listening for patterns. I'm trying to understand where there's alignment across their leadership team, and where there might be gaps or even tensions that might need to be surfaced or re-examined later on. And then after the workshop, I work with the customer's account team and then the customer to translate the results of this workshop into a prioritized set of recommendations. And the goal is that the customers are ending their total end-to-end AIM engagement with a clear picture of where to focus to advance their AI maturity as an organization. So it's not going to just be some 80-page report that's going to collect dust at the end, and they're not ever going to want to read it because it's way too much. It is an actionable roadmap that is realistic, it is achievable, and it aligns with their goals as an organization. And that follow through of that roadmap matters just as much as the assessment itself. My job doesn't end when the workshop does, so it is just as critical for me to really knock that roadmap out of the park and then align AWS resources to help that customer be successful when they're executing that roadmap.
Awesome. So, hard question for the chat. Remember, chat stays with the chat. It's like Vegas. So if you could fix one thing about how your organization approaches your AI strategy, what would it be? And I know I have seen it that people don't want to cliff dive, or they don't want to do analysis paralysis, or their AI strategy, they want to pause it to fix their data. Mary, Anna, have you seen any other reasons or things that have changed in the AI strategy?
So there's so many areas, right? Because we're assessing 50 things. And what we tell our customers is we're not asking you to stop, right? Like there's a need for speed. But what we're saying is, in parallel, if as you are, you already identify some use cases, you're trying to resolve the blockers that are presented, or you have systems in production, but then you're struggling to demonstrate what is the business value that those solutions are actually bringing to the business. What we're saying is, in parallel, we can do this, and that's going to give you insight. It may be, for example, that one of the very typical reasons that we see for blockers is the need for new governance, because you're dealing with probabilistic outputs. So not only there may be legal risks, there may be ethical risks. So a lot of organizations have gone from that analysis paralysis of what do we do to actually being blocked by their legal department saying, we don't trust that you know what you're doing, or that you're not going to put our organization at risk. So actually, by having this systematic approach to it, it's a lot easier to build that trust, because you're demonstrating how you are integrating responsible AI practices, managing compliance, ensuring data privacy, ensuring the security of the infrastructure that you're using, because there's new vectors of risk, right? So we find that it becomes, because it's well defined, it becomes easier to have these conversations around what are we missing, what do we need to do, and what else that we were not doing before do we need to do now.
Awesome. So question in the chat, and I think, Mary, we're going to go to you on this one because you were talking about the workshop. So what does I'll call it a very productive AIM workshop look like versus one that struggles? What makes the difference?
You know what, Brittany, I saw that comment pop up, and my first thought was I need to send that to Anna, because she's done a ton of these. So I'm not trying to. We were for all the viewers before we started live streaming. I was like, if I don't know the answer of a question, I'm just going to send it to Anna. But truly, I think Anna is far more equipped to answer this because she's led so many of these workshops. So Anna, I'd love to get your opinion.
Yeah. So we've done close to 100 of these engagements where we bring in the leadership at an organization. That varies, of course, from organization to organization. In some cases, I've had all the C-level roles coming into the meeting. In others, I would say the most typical is the CTO or CDO, someone responsible for that AI strategy and their direct reports. But we also have someone from HR, someone from security, someone from governance or risk. So the difference between one that is really productive and one that's not is actually who attends to the workshops. I had one where we only had 3 people from the customer's organization attend. So the dialogue was very limited. And it's in that dialogue where you can unearth things that, that were not, the customer, they may be having a dialogue among them. And because, we're doing this for so long and seeing the patterns, it's easy for us to identify something that they might not even be aware that they were missing or that they were doing in a wrong way. So the productivity of the workshop, it's really that dialogue and that conversation. And it's typically, we as practitioners, we kind of take a step back for every topic and let them have that conversation. And that's really where the value is. If we have time, I can also talk about some of the patterns that we've seen sort of in aggregate across the workshops. I don't know if we have the time.
We'll pause that. We might be able to fit it in at the end, but
okay.
A couple questions. So a question that just popped into my mind, ladies, that I have not asked you even during the prep time. Is this a paid engagement? And how does that work for the customer?
It's no cost. It's no cost. Yes. The commitment that the customer makes is a serious one, right? Because they're coming into a room for 4 hours and it's their leadership team. So, it's a huge commitment from their end. But to this day, not a single customer has said, I wish this was shorter.
Yep.
Because there's such a value in that conversation. And what they realize as they're there, that they're not even talking to each other. Like they're still looking at their different areas as silos. And it's so important to connect the dots throughout the implementation cycle at how every one of these leaders play a role in how the use cases are selected or prioritized and how decisions are made in terms of, are we ready to actually go from a pilot to full implementation? Are we ready to go from full implementation to production? how are we observing what's happening after things are in production to ensure that they're still in alignment with the original expectations?
Awesome. So I know this is going to be a heavy question because it depends probably on the size of the customer and a lot of complexities, but who should we involve in the workshop so to make it more effective?
Yeah. So when we talk to a customer about an AI maturity engagement and they say, I really want to do it, what's next? We actually have a guidance document that we've written where we explain how the workshop will be conducted, every one of the topics that we're going to cover, and then we suggest roles that they should bring for that conversation. So the customer receives that guidance, and of course, roles will change from organization to, depending on the industry, depending if it's public sector or private sector. But it's aimed to give them that guidance of, you want someone from the people side, you want someone from the security side, someone from the governance or risk side. So we provide all that guidance to customers so that they know how to bring. I've delivered some where I've had 28 people, VPs and up. I've delivered the ones where only 3 people attended. And really, typically, when we have these big groups, it's kind of scary because you feel like we're going to run out of time, and these are very busy people, and it really, we've never ran out of time, and that conversation is so rich that everyone comes of the workshop feeling like they gained something just by being there.
Awesome. That's very good to know that you would give guidance on that too, because I know if you're working with startups, there's probably not 25 people sometimes.
Yes.
And then when you're working with corporate, you could be working with hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. So for example, the one that I said I had the whole C-level, it was a startup, not early stage. It's a large startup. But in their case, we were working with the CTO, and he said, I want to bring every one of the C-level leaders because I want them to understand that this is not that AI is not a technology project. It's not my problem. So I think he was very smart because he brought, the marketing head. He brought the CEO. The CEO sat there for 4 hours, which I was shocked. So it's going to change the level, the role, depending on the organization, depending on the availability of people. But you for sure want to have people that represent different areas in the organization and people that can, in fact, drive change. So if you're working with someone, or if you're, like, let's say you are someone at a company, but your responsibility, it's let's say for a couple of use cases, not the overall strategy, then it's very difficult. You won't be able to drive that change. We need that commitment from the top to ensure that the changes or investments or patience or understanding about, this is not magic. There's actually a method that you can follow to make things more efficient, more productive, and more aligned with business value.
So I know our customers are going to ask, and potentially some of our AWS employees that are on, since this is such a new program, Anna, how do AWS employees get started and get their customers in line for this free engagement? And then what do customers need to do to talk to their Amazonians to get help on this?
Yeah, so for internal Amazonians, we have the typical internal information tools, HighSpot page, where they can go, they can find all the information about how to qualify their customers. They find a first call deck so they can introduce the program to the customers. They find these assets, a one-pager describing the program, the asset where we're suggesting these are the people that should come to the workshop. They can open a spec rec asking for help if they need help, or to find a certified practitioner to deliver the engagement. For customers, we are in the process of creating a web page under our AWS site. It's under revision right now, so we'll share it once it's live. And there you can, provide your information and say, I want to learn more about this program. Or if you're with our customers and want to learn more, talk to your account manager and say, we're interested in learning more about the AIM program.
And when
Mary, something else that you would add, Mary?
For any Amazonians who are watching, if as I'm describing my role in the field and driving the workshop and the subsequent roadmap, if you're like, oh my God, that sounds really awesome, I would love to do something like that. We are actively recruiting additional AIM practitioners. So go to that HighSpot page, reach out and if that's something that you think that you would be interested in and be good at, because this program is a lot of fun and I'm expecting very high levels of interest as word starts getting out its availability.
Awesome. So one thing I will do as a call to action for everyone on the call, on the Twitch, whether you're doing podcast, anything like that, connect with any of us on LinkedIn, because as soon as that page goes live, all three of us will be posting. Anna, I'm assuming you're going to post it first, and we're probably going to do some reposting. So make sure you connect with us there. And as we are almost wrapping up, I have a couple things hidden up my sleeves, ladies. You know how I need to know, what is the one thing you want people to walk away with from this episode knowing? And I know one is hard to choose. So I'm going to give you a second to think about it. Why I asked the chat, what is one thing you wish your leadership understood better about your organization's AI readiness as you learned about a lot of this? And you could write it down privately if you need to. But remember, it's Vegas. Whatever happens on the Twitch stream. Mary, I'm going to go to you first, if that's okay, putting you on the spot.
Yeah. So I guess if only one thing, which is hard for me because I'm a bit of a yapper, I would want folks on the line to see AI maturity as a destination. Like Anna was describing earlier, even if you are someone who has all the resources in the world to reach that level 5 maturity, technology is advancing so rapidly that by the time you reach the top of that mountain, you're going to look up and see there's another one right in front of you, right? So AI maturity is very much a destination. The organizations that are winning with AI aren't necessarily the ones who got it perfect on the very first try. They're the organizations who have built in the discipline to assess, to learn, and to improve continuously. So the AIM program gives you the framework to do just that. And the best time to start is now.
Awesome. So Anna, before you answer, I'm going to have you combo this one because somebody just tuned in and we will put this on instant replay right after we're done. But could you give us the 30-second elevator pitch for AIM? Because they're asking if it's only an AWS or an Amazon employee resource.
So for becoming certified as a practitioner right now, it's only for Amazonians. We are a new program, so we have not built a way to scale it outside of Amazon yet. So to become a practitioner, yes, you need to be part of Amazon. But if you are from a customer that wants to potentially do an engagement like this, then yes, this is open to anyone that sees the need for a more strategic adoption of AI.
And Anna, what is the one thing you want people to walk away with knowing after this episode?
The one thing that I always remind people, because some people ask me, why should I worry about AI maturity? Like, I've been doing this for X years or X decades, and I wasn't that worried about maturity before. Why is that so important for AI? And I always say, just remember one thing, this is probabilistic. It's very easy to forget because the quality of it, especially when it comes to managing the written word, it's so high. So when you're working in a probabilistic environment, there may be things that you're not fully aware of because you're used to doing things this way. And no, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to change radically, but it means you're probably going to have to do an extra step to think, what is the impact of this answer that I just got here if it's incorrect? And, is it something that it's minor, or is it something that can potentially put the company in legal risk?
Awesome. So we have another comment down here, and I couldn't relate to this more. Data and skills readiness determines the success or failure of any AI project. I would put it there.
Yes, those are some of the elements that we assess for. It's very key. I think if we had to, as I mentioned before, we assess 50 different areas. But if we had to like write down at a high level, what are the ones that would most commonly block projects? It would be data, it would be skills, it will be selecting the right use cases, selecting the ones where you actually have more readiness, more probability of actually getting them into production, while at the same time creating business value. A very typical blocker also is everything that's related to risk, AI security practices, AI governance, responsible AI practices. Cost management is different. A lot of these new technologies come with a completely different cost model. So there is, besides data and skills being so key, we also see that selection of use cases and the ability to address the new risk challenges, and understanding sort of what that end-to-end process looks like to bring together the right stakeholders, the right technologies. All of those areas are where typically a project is going to get blocked if that's not addressed well.
So I had somebody DM me, so they don't want to be on the public, we'll call it comment chat. But if you had an AIM engagement and your organization went through it, moving the needle, what does progress look like 6 to 12 months down the road?
Oh, I love that question. So first of all, I don't think we defined it, but we measure maturity on a scale of 1 to 5 for each capability. So when you come out of an engagement, yes, we can average all of that, and it's going to give you a number at your organization level. But every one of the capabilities is going to have a score from 1 to 5. 1 means you're not doing it, or you're just winging it. Really, like, we don't know how to do this, we're just jumping in. At a level 2, that means that capability already has a team or a few teams that have standard best practices and that truly know, when we did this process, these were the things that worked, and this is how we remove the blockers. So they can rapidly implement new projects. At a level 3, we're looking at that organizational adoption. So we're looking at not just a few teams or a team is doing it. We're looking at there's a way in the organization where we're capturing the best practices, and it's where everyone can access that knowledge, and a new team doesn't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, so they can rapidly scale and start building other solutions across the organization. At a level 4, we're looking at everything measured. So of course you should have KPIs from the very beginning, but here's where potentially we're automating more of that measurement. On the technical side, on the business side, what is the business impact that this brings? And also adoption. Are the users actually using the things that we're building? And then level 5 is like the holy grail. Everything's optimized, everything's beautiful, perfect. Like even if you get there, you probably won't stay there for too long. So when you come out of the engagement, you have that score for each of the capabilities. So progression is measured, and this is an industry standard for looking at maturity in terms of adopting technology in full alignment with business value. I will tell you that across all the engagements that we've done, across all capabilities, across all customers, the average is 2.05, which means most organizations are still in that stage where some teams are kind of figuring out how to do things, but they cannot scale across the organization because a new team, and let's say the marketing side, they create a new team and then they're like, we have to start reinventing the wheel. So most organizations are at this stage. In terms of the individual capabilities that we assess across the world, because we've done engagements in every geography, the lowest score, it's on threat detection, talking about AI security, because organizations have been doing security for cloud for some time, but for AI, there's a lot of new risk factors. So the lowest score for the individual capabilities is on threat detection, which tells us, customers need to learn more about AI security. And across categories, the operations category seems to have the lowest scores, which means, again, and that comes from the nature of these probabilistic technologies, because you put something into production and you're not done. You have to continue observing what happens and making decisions as to, are these solutions that I deployed still delivering answers or outputs within that range that we estimated to be acceptable. So we get a lot of interesting information, for the different geographies, the different industries, when we're looking in aggregate at those numbers.
Awesome. Mary, we are going to give you the last question from the chat. How does the AWS AI Maturity Accelerator AIM program help women develop AI and technical skills?
Thank you for the question, Luis. And I love this question coming right off of, International Women's Day. So like I mentioned earlier, if you are an Amazon employee, if you work for AWS and you hear about the AIM program and you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds incredible, I want to do it. The training pipeline to become an AIM certified practitioner, you learn skills that maybe you didn't previously had. So we have an entire pipeline built out. There's a mentorship model available where maybe you didn't necessarily, enter AIM as an expert on all things AI maturity, but you start gaining that knowledge and that experience going through the certification pipeline and then into the delivery of workshops. And then on the customer side, let's say you are, a female executive, maybe you're an HR leader and you haven't had much exposure to all things AI just yet. Sitting in this workshop, supporting the subsequent execution of the roadmap as a deliverable will give you more exposure, experience, skills, and knowledge. So end to end, no matter what side you're on, whether it's AWS or customer side, the AIM program gives women opportunities to build their knowledge and skill set in AI.
Awesome. All right. Do we think, Anna, you could do one last question? I know this was asked to me, but if we speed race it, we'll be able to answer it in 3 minutes or less. All right.
Yeah. So AIM is not a mechanism to teach machine learning and AI, right? You can think of AIM, AI Maturity Accelerator, as a way for an organization to assess their capabilities, technical and organizational, or another way to say to assess their AI strategy. So through it directly, we're not offering, we're not enabling you to learn ML AI. But there's so many programs, not just through AWS. I don't think there's ever been any more content out there in terms of how to build up machine learning and AI skills. AWS has several programs, but there's so much free training from multiple organizations that if anything, you can end up in analysis paralysis because there's so much that it's like, well, where do I start?
Yep.
And because there's also so much availability of the AI-based chats, that's also an opportunity. Sometimes people ask me, how do I start identifying how I can use, for example, an AI chatbot for the benefit of the work that I do? I always say, look, start with something simple, even with your personal life. Like you're going to visit Nashville over the weekend, use any of the chat agents that are available for free and use it to plan your trip. You're going to cook something, use it to plan that. You can start with things that are simple, and then you can start thinking about how you use this for the purpose of your jobs, outside from becoming a technical expert that's building the systems themselves.
And if you're like me and you have to do it, there is Build With Me sessions on this Twitch stream and the YouTube channel as well, where you can actually build side by side with us, where we're going through and demoing, and that's the best way I've learned to do that. So, ladies, I have done really good not cracking jokes and a straight face and having fun with you today. But before we sign off, if AIM taught us anything back in the day, it's that the right message sent at the right time to the right person changes everything. That's exactly what the AI Maturity Accelerator is. It is doing that for organizations today. It's not about being online, but it is about knowing where you stand so you can move forward. So, Anna and Mary, I am super, super excited I got to spend the last hour with you, and want to thank you for joining us. And feel free, chat, to reach out to these lovely ladies and connect with them on social media, and be on the lookout for when AIM launches its public website. And we will talk to you soon. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.